What's up, guys? It's Will here, back again, and today we're here to do something very exciting, and that is to recap Hot Toys collecting in 2023. We're going to go through the trends, we're going to go through the data, we're going to see what we can find, what insights we can gather. But before we get started, make sure to click that like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification bell for updates related to all content posted here on this channel. That said, guys, let's get analytical. All right, guys, so before we get too far into this and I start presenting all the insights and data and information and analysis, I want to give you guys a little bit of background. What I did was I tracked all of the announcements and releases from Hot Toys in 2023. This is the first year that I've done this. So in future years, I'll be able to compare year to year. What were the changes? What sort of trends can we notice and things like that? But overall, this year is the first year we've done it. So what I'm going to do is just dive into important things about releases, month to month, announcements, things like that, discrepancies, and we'll go over sort of what we can gather from all that information. Guys, that said, let's jump into it. All right, guys, let's get into the data. Let's get into the information. Let's analyze. Let's determine what we can learn from Hot Toys in 2023. What you can see here to start, we have Hot Toys annual releases 2023 in the form of a chart. What I did was I took the liberty of separating it out by the big three, or what we perceive to be the big three. More on that later. Marvel, Star Wars, and DC. You can see here month to month, Marvel generally is on top most months. Marvel clearly has a high priority from Hot Toys, the highest of priorities, because most releases are month to month Marvel in terms of the lead. You can see here May, we have a little bit of a tie here. Star Wars obviously took the lead in July. In December, Star Wars took a little bit of a lead too, but in most months, you're seeing Marvel take most of the priority and the preference. January is a very interesting month because DC only had about 9 releases this year, and 3 of them were actually in the first month of the year in January. February is the lightest month in terms of overall releases. So we're thinking about maybe the lightest month, the month that you can most likely save your money from year to year. That's probably going to be February, although it's difficult to tell. We've only tracked the data for 1 year so far, but for future years, we'll track it as well. And we'll be able to compare year to year how this will tend to go. But generally speaking, that could be related to the Chinese New Year and them ramping back up production. February is just a little bit slower in terms of overall output. Maybe that's, probably what I'm thinking here. But as far as most months, you can see Star Wars and Marvel clearly taking the priority in most months, with DC lagging behind more often than not. So sorry, DC collectors, but there are J&D and InArt out there as well. But you get about at least 1 Marvel figure every month, excluding February, where you have, at least 2 Marvel figures every month, rather. In February, we only have 1. Star Wars, generally, you're getting from 1 all the way up to like 6 Star Wars figures per month. Generally speaking, though, still about 1, 2, more typically. But generally speaking, 2 Star Wars Hot Toys per month. Somewhere between there, 2 and 4 is generally about the range you can expect, with a rare anomaly month in July of 6. I don't think there's any major insight to be gained here besides February being a little bit slower in terms of like when you can plan out your money budget, because I think overall it's going to depend on what is releasing in that time that you're interested in. That's going to impact how you're judging what's kind of going on with your overall collection plan and strategy and stuff like that. So I do think, I don't know if there's too much to gather from that in that specific realm, but I do think there are some insights to be gathered in terms of seeing that Marvel generally is going to have the most releases and Star Wars is going to be second, which we pretty much expected, but Marvel is still king, despite the fact that we maybe thought it might be changing. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. Let's talk about releases a little bit further. So in 2023, Marvel accounted for 49% of Hot Toys overall releases. There were 82 releases as far as me recording this video. So releases, generally speaking, what I'm referring to those as are anything that was a figure or a vehicle from a certain property. If there was a pack of some kind, I considered it 1 release. So for example, the Batman and the Batcycle are 1 release. That's 1 DC release because it was sold as a pack. So that's how I, interpreted those. And Star Wars, you can see at 31% of the overall releases. Star Wars had a little over 20 releases throughout the year. So it wasn't too bad. Star Wars fans definitely got a lot of figures that they were looking for. DC and one-offs pretty much neck and neck, actually. I thought DC maybe would have a little bit more than one-offs. One-offs I defined as anything that is not Star Wars, Marvel, or DC. So that could be Back to the Future. It could be Predator. It could be John Wick. It could be, Kamen Rider, anything like that, right? Anything like that is considered a one-off to me. So that's how I define them. So Marvel still obviously the primary focus, Star Wars still the secondary focus, although that is going to be changing a little bit, which we'll talk about. DC still a little bit of an afterthought for Hot Toys. One-off also kind of an afterthought at 10%. Star Wars overall releases in 2023, it was 3-1 to DC and one-offs, and then Marvel is almost 5-1. So Marvel definitely is taking most of Hot Toys' attention in 2023 as far as release schedule, but there are more insights to be gathered. But yeah, Marvel still, despite the MCU struggles, there's still a lot of comic Marvel shit to make. There's still a lot of video game stuff. There are TV shows and films and stuff like that. You're seeing less Marvel stuff, I would say, overall, which we'll talk about just due to the struggles, but it's still very popular overall, it seems like. So let's look at the overall announcements. One of the big things, and we'll compare in a sec, is comparing the overall production versus the announcements from a company. So as far as announcements are concerned, Marvel is still taking the priority. We're at 27 announcements for 2023 as of me recording this video. There's about a couple days left before the end of the year, but 27 Marvel Hot Toys announcements, 23 Star Wars, DC 13 and one-offs. You can see DC and one-offs pretty consistent here. We're looking at the overall release output versus the announcement output, so to speak, and DC and one-offs still pretty much neck and neck. DC has a couple more, 2 more to be exact, but generally speaking, there's about the same level of commitment to DC and one-offs that there were as far as commitment to releases. So I think that's to be expected moving forward. About 10 to 15% of production is going to each individual category. So there's clearly some sort of game plan there with that. I don't know if there's some sort of contractual licensing agreement with Disney where they have to produce a certain amount, but those IPs maybe just sell more too. Marvel and Star Wars are clear to be very much the priority. Star Wars narrowing the gap a bit. Marvel with only 4 more announcements. So Star Wars definitely narrowing the gap just a little bit in terms of where Hot Toys priorities lie. So let's look at releases versus announcements. One of the big talking points that we see a lot on live streams and Facebook groups and so forth is whether these companies are delivering on the products they're promising in a realistic time frame and quality and all that. It's a little hard to gauge satisfaction because I don't really have the data for that. But what I can say is looking at the raw numbers, Hot Toys is definitely releasing a bit more than they're announcing, right? If we're looking at Marvel, there's a little bit of a downtick. They released 40 Marvel figures, and that could be Marvel was a lot more hot when they announced a lot of those figures, and they only announced 27 in 2023 that'll be coming year and a half, 2 years from now. Star Wars, pretty similar. So they released 25 figures. They announced 23 new figures. So overall, Star Wars pretty consistent there. DC, relatively consistent, 9 releases, 13 announcements. Then we got one-offs, 8 releases, and 11 announcements. So we see a little bit of an uptick there in future one-off projects to come. And overall, 82 releases and 74 announcements. That's about as even as you could hope for. So I do think Hot Toys deserves a lot of praise in this regard. I think, yeah, this is very cool. And we got to give Hot Toys some credit there that, they're delivering on what they promised. So let's look a little bit further at characters. So characters, as far as releases, I really just focus here on the hottest, most high priority characters that really got the most attention from Hot Toys in 2023. So if we're looking at releases, a little bit surprising, actually. I don't think most of us realize this. Iron Man had the most. Iron Man had 9 releases in 2023. Batman had 4. Spider-Man had 4. Boba Fett had 2. There were a couple other characters who had 2 as well, like Wonder Woman and a few others, but Boba Fett is on there for now with 2. Loki had 4, actually. I counted Sylvie as a Loki because she is Loki, technically. So Loki had 4. Loki had a bit of a commitment there as far as releases. Iron Man and Spider-Man and Batman, no shocker there, right? Most of us expected those 3 are the big 3 cash cows for Hot Toys, and they were very consistent in that. So yeah, Iron Man's still the king in 2023, but could be changing a little bit. Let's take a look. Let's talk about popular character announcements. So Spider-Man actually taking the lead here. So as far as new figure announcements for 2023, we're going to look at Spider-Man being the top dog there. So Spider-Man with 8 announcements, Batman with 7, Iron Man with 5. So Iron Man's seeing a little bit of a downtick as far as releases from 2023 versus announcements from 2023 for new figures coming up in future years. So yeah, Spider-Man, I think that's pretty cool. Spider-Man, to be expected, he's one of the cash cows. Those are the big 3. I simplified this list for a reason. There are some other characters being announced, but these 3 are taking up a decent amount of the real estate, and they're the 3 most notable. So for this list, I decided to simplify just a tad, but nothing too crazy there. We are seeing a little bit of a downward trend for Iron Man, like I mentioned, but Spider-Man's still taking the lead there. So one of the other big talking points that we see quite frequent is maybe people criticizing Hot Toys for reissues and release 2.0, stuff like that. So a reissue or a remake, something along those lines. So if we're looking at the numbers though, a reissue or a 2.0 as far as releases in 2023, that only counted for 6 releases, which is 7% of Hot Toys' overall output is a reissue or a 2.0. That's not a lot. So the other 93%, the other 76 releases were standard releases, new figures, new outfits, so to speak, whatever, right? Not an exact reissue or not an exact 2.0 of that same outfit they already released. So very interesting there, 7%. So it's really not as high as we thought it was. The chance of a reissue or a 2.0 is relatively low, it appears, but we can look a little bit further at that to gain a little bit more analysis at the announcements. So as far as the insights gathered there, we're thinking about, 12%, right? 12% of announcements in 2023 were actually reissues or 2.0s. I would assume for 2024, this number is going to be on the rise, just because, like I mentioned, Star Wars is not going to be producing as much content, and neither is Marvel, and DC probably not either. So Hot Toys is going to have to look outside of their normal range of what they go for, because the content is just not going to be there to the volume that they're used to. So with that considered, you're probably going to see more remakes, more 2.0s. They may go back for Star Wars original trilogy, hopefully. They may go back for more prequel shit. They may go back for more original Avengers. But overall, standard releases 88%, reissues are 12%. So it's really not a lot. I would assume in 2024 that number could rise, however. So only time will tell, but I find this pretty interesting, and that would be my speculation. But yeah, there are other data points maybe to be gathered, but for now, guys, I think we learned a lot today. So let's get back to the rest of the video. All right, so that's that. Those are the insights to be gathered from Hot Toys Collecting 2023. Guys, I can't believe we're about to enter 2024, but 2023 was a really good year for Hot Toys Collecting. A lot of releasements, a lot of announcements, a lot of exciting things happening. Also outside of Hot Toys, NR, J&D, things like that, 3.0. There's a lot of exciting things out there in the 1/6 scale collecting world. But guys, let me know your insights that you gathered from Hot Toys Collecting for 2023. If there's more you want me to go into with the data, there's probably some more analytics, insights that I could share just by looking at it a little bit more intently, a little bit more deeply, but I want to make sure you guys like this type of sort of data-based, content here before we get too deep into it. But if you do enjoy it, let me know in the comments below, and of course, drop a comment about anything else you'd like to see, any other topics you'd like to see covered. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for the support as always. I will catch you in the next video. Peace out. See you later. Bye. Bye.